Anyway, she doesn't know she's living her life through an android body, so they can't just wake her up because it might cause her to have a psychotic break. Which is a problem since her surrogate body has gone missing in the zone with no way to track it. No, not the zone! Why do they keep sending this man there? Nothing good can come from it. So far, the 2 times he was there, his partner was turned into Swiss cheese and the back of his head was nearly made into a canoe. This is a man who needs to live a zone-free life. Okay, I get the fact that they don't want her to find out that she's in an android body, which is total bullshit, by the way, because I'm pretty sure she would realize something was wrong when she didn't feel the need to eat or piss. But if she's in an android body, what exactly can they do to her?
Look, no offense, Andy, but you know what people do with androids.
Manual labor, soldiers, domestics, sex slaves. Sex slaves.
They gave them working genitals. Why would anybody bother to do that? You know what? Forget it. I don't want to know why. Unfortunately, with the invention of the real doll, an android with a working pussy was the only logical next step. They go to see one of Hammond's snitches, where we get to see the robot not knowing how to play good cop, bad cop. You know what? I'm going to stop pointing out all these cliches, otherwise we'll be here for the next 3 hours because there's a shitload of them. The snitch obviously knows the whereabouts of the girl, and after making a phone call to someone in the zone, they track it. Elsewhere, Sergeant Jones puts the word out in the zone that the ones who killed Dax will be there tonight. So Sergeant Jones knows exactly when and where these two are going to be without giving them any orders whatsoever to do so. And don't try to tell me he knew because he was monitoring them, because he put the word out before they even got to the zone. And they easily could have just stopped at the door and decided to wait until tomorrow to go in with backup.
They've entered the zone.
Good. As soon as they make contact, I need to know. Are we still getting transmission?
Yes, sir.
What about the manual override option? You think you could switch them into manual override?
Of course.
Turns out the mayor, played by Charles S. Dutton, is also a villain in league with Sergeant Jones, and this is all just an elaborate plan to clean out the zone.
It's always been our goal to rid the zone of gang lords. Last week's raid was step 1. This is step 2. Once Officer Hammond and his partner acquire their targets, they'll be 14 miles into the zone. Due to the contamination, there's only one safe way out. Fortunately for us, that safe way leads them past each gang territory, one by one by one. It'll be kill or be killed.
Now, the beauty of this, sir, is they'll be taking the gangs out for us, one by one. And if they should be taken out, then we'll be justified in going in for retaliation.
Okay. All the gangs are in one area that is not part of your city. The fucking earthquake managed to do the impossible and clean up LA. And you want to fuck that up. And that's what this plan is going to do. It's going to fuck that up by going in there and destroying their homes. Because there's going to be survivors. And they're going to start new gangs in LA. And you're doing this because...
I like turtles.
When they get close to the phone signal that they've been tracking, they decide to go the rest of the way on foot because they're the moronic duo. This naturally leads to trouble, seeing how there are 2 cops in an area that has no law and full of gangs. I mean, what did you think? They were gonna roll out the red carpet for you? Well, they might, but it will be to clean up your blood. Since their communications are being jammed, they decide to go back to the car, which they should have never left in the first place, but are saved by the mayor's daughter from a car bomb. A car bomb that was timed to go off at the exact moment they were supposed to be back at their car calling for backup.
That is a positive ID. Did we take out their vehicle?
Negative, sir. That wasn't us.
Oh, they're gonna have a fun night.
Yeah, because it sure looks like nighttime with that big fucking sun in the sky at high noon. It turns out that the reason the mayor's daughter is there is because she's been trying to prove that there's no radiation in the zone, which is evident by healthy born babies. Instead, the mayor has been poisoning the people through the food ration drops into the zone, driving up the property value of his own property in LA, which is why cleaning out the zone is a stupid fucking idea. It would only decrease the value of his own properties. I also have to call bullshit on the babies being born healthy, since whatever the mother puts in her body, the baby receives, and I'm pretty sure turtle mutagens would cause some major fucking birth defects. Their first real gang encounter are these rejects from the Road Warrior, who clearly never made it beyond Thunderdome.
Yeah! At last! You know how long I've been waiting to pull out one of those? I'm finally a contender!
Anyway, from this point on, for the next 10 minutes, we have to watch them try to make their way to higher ground and get past the jamming signal and call for an extraction, which includes going through a building full of gang members. I would call this a ripoff of Dread, but since that movie was a ripoff of The Raid, fuck it. During the fight, the mayor's daughter cuts herself and discovers she's an early model of the Bishop android.
I prefer the term artificial person myself.
Yeah, I suspected. I mean, the fragments, the memories.
The fact that you don't eat shit, drink, or piss should have been your biggest clue.
Sergeant Jones and his howling criminals arrive, and when Andy senses that Jones has a hidden agenda, he tells Hammond to take the girl and run.
Williams, we need that manual override.
Initiating manual override control. In 3, 2, 1.
However, the override isn't for Andy, but in fact, Hammond. Oh, I am so adding this to the bullshit meter, and I'll explain why later. So remember in the beginning when Hammond's partner was killed? Well, the gun also shot him down as well. The girl in her real body at the time watched the whole thing. She saw that Hammond was still alive and tried to pull him to safety and was gunned down as well. And if this story wasn't incomplete enough, this revelation opens up a ton more questions like what made her think her 95-pound ass can drag a 200-pound man to safety? She said that Hammond saved her life earlier in the film, but how could he do that when he was lying on the ground bleeding like a poached bear? If the mayor knew he was the one that was there when his daughter was shot, and the mayor had to have known, why send him out there with the possibility of his memories resurfacing? Why are they wearing the exact same clothes from that day? Are clothes hard to come by in the future? Why didn't Hammond notice he hadn't eaten in all that time? I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep harping on this, but I don't understand how you don't realize you haven't eaten or taken a leak since your partner was killed. That's not something you can just chalk up to PTSD, since you'll start to get physically sick and die after a while. I can't go a day without getting a headache from not eating, so how is it that he had no idea? It's just one of those things I can't fathom. It's like not noticing you missing a leg, or not noticing that you're blind, or that.
And now for something completely different.
Hammond manages to break their control while Robo Reject gets into a firefight. The three manage to escape and head to a news station with blood sample evidence that the mayor's daughter has been collecting to expose him, so Sergeant Jones has Hammond's life support for his real body shut off and plans to do the same for the mayor's daughter.
So why did they do that in the first place? Cut a life support system and let her die. Problem solved. It's not like she was in a hospital, she was at home. Hell, you could have just woken her up, claimed she had a psychotic break, and put her in a mental institute. Anything would have been better than this asinine plan to have her assassinated. God, it's like this script was written by a bunch of monkeys.
Let's see. It was the best of times. It was the blurst of times. You stupid monkey.
Hammond tells Andy to call his friend in the media and tell her to meet them at the hospital where the mayor's daughter's body had been moved, which Andy was able to locate through her android nurse's tracking device. They get cornered at the top of a building's parking lot across from the hospital, which they use to jump into a room that just happens to have no one inside of it on a sunny midday. The mayor's daughter gives the evidence to the reporter, which was friends with Hammond, and we get to watch Hammond die. No, really, I'm not kidding. The dude actually goes flatline. Well, I give the movie credit for having balls for killing its star 15 minutes before the movie ends. Andy makes his way to the mayor's daughter's room, where they inject her with something before the mayor comes in pretending to be grateful and claiming that she signed a do not resuscitate order, so they're pulling the plug.
You told me she wouldn't wake up. What did you do to her?
Your nurse has been keeping her sedated.
Bullshit! Bullshit! I'm calling bullshit! Bullshit!
There's absolutely no reason for him to think that would work. He pays for her medical bills and her surrogate. So he knows the only thing wrong with her is that she's paralyzed from the waist down and that she's being sedated. You know, this movie has slowly been declining from idiocy to mental retardation. I'm serious. This movie could apply for SSI and it wouldn't be denied.
Do something!
Of course, because pushing random buttons on a life support system that was already shut down is going to increase the odds of her dropping dead.
You told me she wouldn't wake up. What did you do to her?
Hearing the recording over the loudspeaker, the cops rush in and arrest Amir, and rather than going to jail, he blows his brains out. I guess he knew what fate awaited him in prison.
Come on, that's all you got! And then how did you fight, motherfucker?
And thus the movie did. Oh, bullshit! We saw him die. He flatlined for 15 fucking minutes. How did he? You know what? I don't give a shit.
This movie was bullshit.
That's not to say it's 100% bad. It does have its moments, those being the interaction between Hammond and Andy. Thanks to Michael Jai White's performance, I did legitimately laugh at times, but that still wasn't enough to keep this movie from falling apart. Between the badly written story, the horrible special effects, the grainy coloring, seriously, I felt like I was watching Twilight again. I can honestly say this is the worst Asylum movie I have ever seen. And that fucking twist was total bullshit because it was so poorly executed it felt like they just pulled it out of their ass. A good twist is made by having small, subtle hints throughout the film. That way, when the twist is revealed, you look back and go, oh, what hints were we given? Well, there's this one. Which only hints that this movie was poorly edited. And then there was this one.
You're not transmitting.
Need another, Sarge.
Give me a week.
Yes, sir.
A little easier to transmit, and I've got a camera, Sarge.
Right.
That only hints that not all the helmets have cameras on them, and that Hammond is a smartass. Oh, and let's not forget this little gem they gave us.
I don't care what you call it, it's still a machine.
You know how you sound when you say you don't like machines?
Which only hints that Hammond really doesn't like machines. And so on and so on. Every hint in this movie isn't a real hint, which is why the twist falls to the ground and flops around like a fish out of water, hoping someone brings the hammer down to end the torture of its slow suffocation.
Personally, I think the only reason Michael Jai White agreed to this movie because it's the closest thing he'll ever get to playing RoboCop. I'm Don Perignon, saving you from getting ripped off.
This was a triumph. I'm making a note here, huge success. It's hard to overstate my satisfaction. Aperture science. We do what we must because we can. For the good of all of us, except the ones who are dead. But there's no sense crying over every mistake. You just keep on trying till you run out of cake. And the science gets done and you make a neat gun for the people who are still alive.
Is it over?